this could go a lot of directions, right? But just first off, thank you all so much for being here tonight, and GreenHill, thank you so much for having me and hosting me. This has been a really wonderful experience. So I'm in the first week of basically a 2-week residency here, and it's my first official residency that I've ever done, and I'm absolutely having a blast in this space, and was not prepared for how cool it would be to be influenced by the people and the space itself in my work while I'm here, and that has been such a fun part of this experience. But before I get going, I wanted to pose a question to all of you. I'm curious, what are the little rituals that make you feel like you're connected to something greater than yourself? This is the audience participation part of the talk.
Well, I have this little ritual when in the morning I have actually a big backyard, and I do have lawn chairs and things, but what I prefer to do is just sit on I call it the stoop, because I grew up in New York City, but actually on the stairs, really with my feet on the sidewalk, kind of in the morning, and kind of just look around and watch the nature kind of happening.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I prefer to do that, kind of just sit on that stair, it's actually only 2 steps, really.
But it makes you feel connected.
It makes me feel connected maybe more to my yard than I would if I was sitting on a chair or something.
Yeah, I love that. And Dee, you were about to say something too.
Yeah, I was just thinking about devotion time and Bible reading for me.
Yeah.
Which I don't necessarily do regularly.
Okay.
When I do.
Anyone else?
I take my garbage can back
That's great.
on the designated day.
That connects you to a lot of things, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just great.
That's wonderful. So are there any that help you get in a creative flow as well? And
for me, I've got to have some kind of music. It doesn't, it depends on my mood too.
okay.
I tell people, if you hear me listen to choral music, you should probably run away, because it means I'm not in a very good mind space.
Because that's what helps you get in.
It helps me clean, but I can be from jazz to electronic to acoustic to folk to rap, so it just, what's gonna set my tone for the day? Because working in silence to me is too scary. I need something.
Well, I think we all have these things that we do that help us feel connected to ourselves, that help us feel connected to others, that help us feel connected to our creativity. And for me personally, for the past 15 years, the thing that has helped keep me the most grounded, the most centered, the most connected has been my daily practice of morning pages. And sometimes it happens every single day, and sometimes I'll skip the weekends or I'll have a busy work day and it doesn't happen, but it is a constant. It's something I trust myself to come back to over and over and over again. And typically it flows, and typically it's where I come up with my best ideas. So morning pages are from, if you're familiar with Julia Cameron's The Artist Way, I brought it in case folks are curious, but The Artist Way, Juliet's seminal book, it's 30 years old, and she's sold millions of copies, but she gives 2 tools for artists, for blocked creatives to unblock. She has morning pages and artist dates, and morning pages are getting up every morning, writing 3 pages, stream of consciousness, whatever comes out. And she suggests doing it first thing in the morning, don't do anything else, have your coffee ready so you can grab it and sit down, so you're still in that liminal space between being asleep and being awake so you can catch those thoughts and those ideas that are hanging out in your unconscious. So this has been an incredible, profound practice for me for a very long time. And it's helped me come into my own as a person. I think it's been a very self-actualization type of practice for me, and it's how I figured out that I was an artist. I didn't go to art school. I'm not classically trained in any way. And this was the thing that over many, many years, I uncovered layers. But in the past few years, they've gotten very stale. And it's like squeezing blood from a rock in the morning instead of being something that flows and feels good. And I still have things to say, and I still have those glimmers, those moments of things going well. But I've realized what's happened is I've come to a place where I can't express what I need to express anymore in just words. I need colors and light and movement to help express what's going on in my body and my mind. And so the Artist Way makes a very bold proclamation. Julie Cameron believes that every single one of us are artists. We're all creatives. And if you don't think you're creative, you are just a blocked creative, right? Is what she believes. And I would tend to agree with her. I think that we all have things that connect us to our most creative self. And that looks different for each of us, but we all have that. So, does anybody not think they're creative? Dee, I know you're creative. I know you're creative. Okay, so, but that's brave. I think a lot of people don't feel as creative as they want to be, or don't feel like they are creative, even if they are. But creativity doesn't have to look like just one thing, and we'll get into that in a minute. But when I've been working with Tracy, who's not here at the moment, but on coming here for this residency, and when I told her I wanted to call this series of work that I'd be working on in this residency, where the ink ran out on April 5th, I didn't know that on April 11th I would be diagnosed with breast cancer. And I would suddenly have a lot to say in my morning pages that I didn't have to say before. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's maybe not quite the case. But then I realized, no, there are still a lot of things and feelings happening inside of me that I don't know how to express any other way. And so this is the perfect time to do that, although it's very much changed my style, at least within this experience. So that diagnosis flipped my world upside down, and it flipped my world, my art, and my life. It brought it into a feeling of chaos, at least internal chaos, that I was trying to regulate in some way. And it made me think about what I wanted to share with all of you about art and creativity, not just about where the ink ran out and what I'm putting on canvas, but why creativity in art is important to each of you as well. So I'm calling these The Art of Feeling, 5 Ways Creativity Moves Us. So I know that we often think of art and creativity as something that we have to go to school for, and while that's awesome if you got to go to school for that, like I said, I didn't. And it's not the only way to embrace our inner artist and our inner creativity. And I hope that these 5 little tips will help you as well. So art is a path to emotional clarity. And we often think of art as something that is about making something beautiful or finished. But the truth is, it's this powerful tool that as you embrace the process and just make and find joy in that process, we find so much clarity of being. We can sort through the emotions and the unprocessed feelings and find a way to come to terms with them and understand them in a way that we might not have otherwise. So painting, drawing, knitting, or even cooking, they all give us physical space to work out what we feel. It allows us to express those emotions we can't fully capture, right? It's an emotional release. So if your art doesn't make sense, that's okay. It doesn't have to be aesthetically pleasing. What matters is the process and the expression inside of that process. Okay, the next, number 2, art connects us to the present moment, like nothing else. When you look at something that moves you, it brings you into presence. When you're making art, hopefully it brings you into presence. So when you're engaged in a creative activity like painting or knitting, you can often forget about time. You forget about the world around you. You're simply present. And in that space of presence, there's room for healing. It's in those moments of total immersion that we often find clarity to deal with life's bigger questions. Creativity is, I believe, one of the most powerful forms of mindfulness that we can experience. I really like mindfulness in movement. I'm a yoga teacher. I do like sitting as a practice in meditation, but I also think that putting pen to paper, coloring, drawing, cooking, knitting, even artfully doing a spreadsheet can be a form of creativity, right? And it can help bring us into the present moment if we let it. So art gives us permission to just be without the pressure of performance or perfection, hopefully without perfection. Art can be a form of self-therapy, but do not fire your therapist. I don't want to get any phone calls about that. There's a reason why coloring books and paint by numbers have become so popular. It's because it's therapeutic. I would harken back to the last one. It helps us come into presence, into the present moment. And the more we're in the present moment, the more we're able to see what is deep within us. That inner wisdom, the intuition, the still small voice within that's talking to us. We can touch that through our creativity. Art is that form of self-therapy where we get to reframe or reimagine our experiences. So you can kind of, your history is never fully written, right? And it might be behind you, but you can rewrite that. You can reframe it. You can see it in a new light, and art can help you do that. With each brush stroke, with each line etched, color scribbled, we can release those pent-up emotions and even change the narratives of our lives. So don't think about just having to create something that gets finished. It's about creating something that helps you process your own story. And you don't have to be a capital A artist for that to be a powerful thing. Go get a coloring book, go get a paint by numbers, go cook a meal that you have to be fully present and follow a recipe for. That is all a form of self-therapy. Now, number 4, art holds space for difficult emotions. So I'm also a life coach, and I always tell my clients that your feelings, your emotions, they're never wrong or bad. There's never anything wrong with your feelings or your emotions. It doesn't matter what they are. What gets complex is if you stuff your emotions down, if you ignore your emotions, if you don't let them out. I talk about this as being like a beach ball, right? So if you're in a pool and you've got a beach ball and if the beach ball is your feelings and you're shoving those feelings down, if somebody knocks into you, that beach ball is going to come flying out of the water at a lot harder velocity than you pushed it down, right? Yeah. And so that's what it's about. So we have to find a way where we can let that beach ball be on the surface so that you can play with it and bat it around. Well, art, creativity is that thing. It lets us be present with that. We don't have to shove our feelings and our emotions down in that way. So we all have these emotions, these big ones, like fear or sadness, anger, or even the good ones, joy. When they get so big, and they feel like so much. We can paint and create and give those emotions a place to land. And it's in that space, that physical space of canvas or page or skillet, that transformation can happen. So art provides a container for these emotions, especially the difficult ones. And again, this is where healing can start. And it gives you permission to express what might be too big or too overwhelming to talk about. And number 5, art can help us reconnect with ourselves. So sometimes we lose touch with who we are when life gets chaotic, but when we step into our creative process, we connect with something deep inside, our intuition, our instincts, our inner voice. And so art, creativity, helps us tune in and drown out the noise of everyday life. I hope that we'll view art as a way to reconnect to our inner truth and our creative wisdom, and use it as a tool to come home to ourselves. So as I stand here surrounded by all of you and the incredible creative energy in this space, in this building, and everything that happens here, all of the artists that come in and out all of the time, and the beautiful work that happens here and is brought here and goes out to other people's homes here, I want you to think about something really important. I want you to think about how creativity is not just about making something beautiful. It's about making space to feel, to grow, to connect to ourselves in a way that nothing else can. It's a form of healing. It's a way to process what's inside and express what words cannot. And in that expression, we start to make sense of the chaos, the pain, the joy, and everything in between. So as you leave here today, I want to invite you to ask yourself, what little rituals can you create that will allow you to reconnect to your emotions through creativity? Maybe it's picking up a paintbrush, maybe it's writing a few lines in your journal, or simply giving yourself permission to mess up and explore. No matter how you choose to express it, remember, creativity is always there for you, waiting to help you move through whatever life throws at you. And thank you so much for coming. And I would love any questions that you have about what I've been working on or what I just shared. Yeah.
I want to say something.
Yes, Denise.
You know you've got a butterfly.
I heard there's a butterfly.
I mean, you are known, right?
I heard. Thank you.
How are you feeling?
I had so much fun. Yeah, that was a fun one to me. I didn't intend on there being a butterfly, but you're not the only person that said that.
It's really pretty.
Thank you.
How long have you been actually doing visual art as a professional?
As like a very intentional practice, probably about 3 to 4 years. Yeah, so, well, more than that. In the pandemic, I guess that was 5 years ago. That doesn't feel like 5 years ago, but in the pandemic, I started making visual art a daily practice.
Was that watercolor?
Through watercolors, yeah.
When you said something about losing yourself, would you broaden that concept just a tiny bit with some words?
Yeah. Say more about in what context you want me to broaden that. Like,
Whatever context you meant.
I think in the society we live in the life, in the society we live in the fast-paced day-to-day that happens, or even, you know, the messaging that we get growing up even. So some of us we leave thinking we know what direction we want to go and what we want to do, and then life happens, and then we start if you know how to do this consistently, let me know, because I could use some help with it. But like, sometimes that inner voice gets really covered up. right? And we stop listening to our intuition and we get really off track on what's most important to us.
That's part of the process.
And it's that constant uncover, like for me, the creativity is the thing that, like the onion, that great metaphor, is every time I come to it over and over and over again, I'm peeling back another layer to get closer to that intuition, to my authentic, core, true self. Does that help? Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's so nice to hear somebody discuss their art with these ideas.
I'm just gonna throw a little monkey wrench into your
Please.
conversation. Because when you look at your work, it has a lot, an awful lot of responsibility and expressiveness and connectivity, but there are also some aesthetic choices that are made, like it's very much of a piece in terms of its style, of, the color palette that you use, the juxtaposition of, the more gestural washes with the lines, and those choices seem to be along the order of aesthetics as opposed to a pure expressive
Right.
kind of unfolding of inner self.
Right, because my personality wants to come out still in that, right? I want it to look a certain way, and what I'll say to that though is what's been really challenging for me, given the diagnosis and given where my brain space has been, I really want an emotion to come through, but I want a strong, beautiful aesthetic to come through. And so there's this inner turmoil happening with the chaos that's inside, and I'm not getting the beauty that I want, is how it feels. So it's I want them to coexist. I'm speaking out of two sides of my mouth a little bit, but I want those things to coexist, and they don't always coexist in the way that you want them to coexist for me. But I think that's a great,
But at one level, it just kind of reflects the place that you are right now.
right. Yeah.
So it is a representation.
I don't think you have to worry about them being beautiful.
No, well, I mean.
No, they're pretty beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have, let's say this. I'm gonna ask it this way, then I'll follow it up. Do you like everything that's on the wall?
No. If I'm answering honestly, no.
And the reason I say that is the last walking art thing through your neighborhood when I bought some stuff and I bought something for somebody else. And I love this painting, but the artist hated it. But I loved it. And you could just tell she was struggling with that. That you bought this one, why didn't you buy this one? I like this one, I like it. So.
I do try to do a practice of releasing myself from the outcome of the piece. So I take very much a Buddhist, I guess, path on this of I'm responsible for the making. Someone else is responsible for the outcome of that making. What it is what it is. I'm supposed to pick up the paintbrush as much as I can pick up that paintbrush and work my process. And if other people like it, that's kind of none of my business. And it's almost none of my business whether or not I like it, because I'm not gonna be the greatest collector of my own work. These pieces aren't for me, they're for other people. The process is for me, the pieces are for others, is how I feel.
So I think what you're saying, if I can turn this back, is I can look at that and I see one thing, you can look at that and see another, and she can, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's right.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. That's kind of what I hope. I mean, I hope that each piece is a conversation. And I'm having a conversation with self and spirit. And when you look at it, you're bringing in another idea into that conversation. To me, that's the beauty of abstract. That's what I love the most about abstract, is it's open for interpretation.
As a writer, do you like some of them that have the collage with words? Like, is that something that you're gonna continue, or are you trying to move away from that?
That's new. So
Yeah.
that's very new actually for me. I've never brought the words into the pieces like that. So I'm playing with it. I'm experimenting. Yeah. I kind of like it. I think. I don't know.
For me, it's the example of where the ink ended.
Yeah.
Something else to burn.
Tough question. Because there's some famous quote that basically says art is never finished, it's just abandoned.
How interesting.
How do you know when you're done?
Sometimes you don't.
And that's,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pin you on it, I'm just curious. It's
Sometimes
like,
you don't. I mean, some things are very cut and dry. You have like, every now and then you'll get like a moment of inspiration and see in your mind. This is where trouble comes in actually, where you'll see exactly what you want to happen on the canvas and you try to make it. And for me, that's when they turn out the worst, at least in my opinion. But you kind of have this image in your head, and sometimes you have the skill to make it happen, and sometimes you don't have the skill to make it happen. And then so those are easier and harder to know when they're done. And then there's the pieces where you just give yourself over to creativity, spirit, fairy, and whatever, and it just magic happens, and there just kind of comes a point where you're like, you step back and you're like, it's done. Part of the beauty of being in this space, especially with a bigger piece, and I love working in bigger pieces, but this is the biggest piece I've ever done. You can step, I have a very small home, so getting to step back from a big piece, it gets really challenging. But here was great because I could like go to the back of the room, I could come forward, and I could see, and so it made it easier to know when I felt complete on this one.
I'll ask you questions, I don't ask you, just tell me to stop. But when you have the vision, and I think this is probably most people's problems with creativity, is you have a vision, you can't make that vision. And it almost sounds like you said, when I'm not trying to necessarily create something, I get something wonderful. Is that, because I'm bad about this, is that a case of where you're blocking yourself and you're overthinking instead of just letting it just, I mean, it's like you're chasing something and you should just be doing something? Does that make any sense? Or am I right?
Can you rephrase that question?
You kind of, it sounded like to me, there were like two ways you come at this sometimes. One way is it's just poof, it happens, or I'm just letting whatever comes, comes.
Yep.
And then the other one says I have this vision and I'm trying to create the vision. Sometimes I'll land the vision, sometimes it's not quite right. Is that?
Yeah, those are the two ways, yeah.
So is the one that's where I have the vision and I can't get it, is it a case of overthinking it, or
I think
blocking
for me,
yourself?
it's a case of I don't have the skill yet. Like I need more creative learning in that of like actual like skill sets. There's room to grow there.
And that's fair.
Yeah, and also I do the best when I don't hold too tightly to the outcome though. I mean, it's like it's best if I can use that spark or that inspiration as the starting place and then not hold too tightly to the final outcome. It's like, we've all heard I think it's the Martin Luther King Jr. quote of like, you just take the first steps on the staircase, right? Like it feels like that, so I'm often the pieces. Any other questions?
Great.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for listening. I'm so grateful.